night for you, isn't it? Late night, is that right?
Always night, but it's okay. It's good. I'm prepared. I don't have any clinic tomorrow, so it works for me.
Yeah, we all the time have this problem. I also have all the time with, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
tomorrow being a Sunday is fine.
Ravi, we have our program on Sunday. Not this Sunday, but every alternate Sunday. The international last one, Monica, it was a outstanding program we had. On our the 43rd
UNESCO
international one, yes, and that goes because of Australia. It starts at 10:30 and goes to 1 for me because I'm the last. Because we start at 6:30 in the Mountain Time, Central Time in US in the morning, and it comes right up to 10:30. If you take New Zealand, which we do have people, but that will be 12:30 in the night. So we left Pacific. We left the Pacific and New Zealand out.
okay, so we are live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 67th International Weekly Meeting from CMAAO on COVID. We are live on various platforms. I also wish good afternoon and good evening for people from US. I know it's very late for them, but the meeting continues. We are sitting on 17th of July. This is 9:30 morning from Indian Standard Time. Today, we have been doing this sessions for almost like 67 sessions before. And today I thought we can do some CMAAO updates and all other countries which are present with us. We can have because a lot of confusion is there. A lot of people, especially in the Asian world, needs to know what's happening around. And whether the third wave will come or not is a big question. What is Delta Plus doing? How are people masking themselves? What is the other countries are doing differently? What we are doing? So all those questions were unanswered on all the meetings we are doing. So we decided we will do a country update at least once a month. So COVID-19 is obviously continuing spreading around the world. Over 190 million confirmed cases are there. More than 4 million deaths have happened in last over a period of time, nearly in 200 countries, with over 600 cases, 600,000 new cases. Will countries see the third wave? How severe will it be? All those questions are to be answered. Overall, China and India had administered the highest number of doses for the vaccine, with over 1.4 billion and 390 million respectively. The US ranked third and more than 335 million. But when it breaks the figure down by doses per 100 people, the population with at least 1 million, UAE and Bahrain and Israel top the list. So with this note, I would like to invite the National Medical Associations to represent and present the data. I would first like to invite Mr. Ravi from Mr. Ravi from Malaysia.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's also the immediate past president of CMAAO. So Ravi, can you please update what's happening around?
Yeah.
And then in between, I will acknowledge everyone once everybody joins in.
Thank you very much, Saurabh. Malaysia is not doing too well. We seem to have a very high number of cases. Of course, I think everything is going down to the Delta variant. As of yesterday per day, we are seeing about 12, maybe 13,000 cases per day, with about 120 to 130 deaths. That is the thing that is a bit worrying here. Though we are in a total lockdown throughout the country, and we have been since 1st of July, despite the total lockdown, the number of cases have not gone down. Hence, what's happened is the government has now come back and said, we will revert back to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Phase 1 is a total lockdown in most of the parts of the country. Phase 2 will be a lockdown with some sectors that will be open. Phase 3 will be a little more where you can dine in and all those kind of things. And phase 4 will be when you have less than 500 cases, which means life goes back to normal. However, what's happening with the vaccination, one good thing that's going on is we are now vaccinating at least between 350 to 400,000 people per day. In fact, that is a good thing. They have stepped up the vaccination process. We are having many vaccination centers. We have mobile vaccination centers. And for those who are special people, that means challenged people like handicapped, they go to the homes and give them the vaccination. A lot of general practitioners have been recruited. The private sector has been recruited to help with the vaccination. So we believe that the only answer is going to be vaccination. And vaccination at the moment, the number is about 4 million or 5 million. And our population is about 32.7 million. We have been giving Pfizer and Sinovac, some AstraZeneca, but mostly is Pfizer and Sinovac. But I think the response has been quite good, but cases are still on a very high level because the vaccination is still not sufficient. The government is going all out to make sure that maximum people are vaccinated. That's about it for Malaysia. Thank you.
And what all vaccines are there in Malaysia right now? I believe 2 more vaccines have been approved recently, Johnson & Johnson and...
No, for the moment, only Pfizer and Sinovac.
Okay.
So we have quite a good supply of Pfizer and Sinovac.
Okay. I would like to now invite Russell, who is the chair for UNESCO and from Australia.
Thank you. Good day, Saurabh. Thank you. And good morning to all of you from around the world. I'm updating you in very, very important to know. Australia, which has been functioning, pretty well, has gone into a major problem. About four to 5 weeks or 6 weeks ago, one driver who was driving the bus was not vaccinated, who were taking the international crew in Sydney, was not vaccinated and didn't wear a mask. From that, it has led to the whole of Sydney, a couple of thousands of cases, a couple of deaths. Following that, last week, 3 movers with some permit got allowed to come into Victoria to deposit something there, and then went on to South Australia. These 3 people, again, didn't follow the rules. They infected, and all with the Delta. So now we have a major problem with half the country, half the population under lockdown. Okay, so we're having the Delta virus. On the other hand, vaccine, as you know, Australia has been using AstraZeneca as the main one, which is being made here. But unfortunately, there's been a number of issues that have happened that has enhanced people not being, they first said it was not available, not for people below 50, and then people died between 50 and 60, so then they stopped it from 60. Then again, someone died after that, and so now anyone above 70, but now because of the shortage, we now started getting the Pfizer vaccine, which was for some reason they didn't get enough, but now Pfizer is coming, and we've reached about 12 or 13% of the population fully vaccinated. So at the moment, and also there was a lot of complaints because there was no virus in the community for long, so no one bothered about vaccines. Suddenly now everyone want to be vaccinated and we don't have enough vaccine. So that's the situation. So they've also reduced the time between the two, because particularly because there is now the epidemic or the pandemic has affected both these states. They've brought down those to 6 weeks instead of 84 days for AstraZeneca, and also the Pfizer has also been, the second dose has been brought closer for those, and I think they're rapidly getting this done. So in the last few days, from 9, it's moved. I think 13% of the population have been completed receiving both. So still lower than what should have happened. So Australia is currently in a total, at least Melbourne and Victoria and New South Wales are in total lockdown. So complete, no one allowed to go out of the house for more than 5 kilometers, not more than 2 hours a day, and only for 5 reasons they can leave. All that is coming now. So that's the situation. Fortunately, in Victoria, we only had this. There have been 19 cases that have come up in the last 2 days, out of which 18. So we expect, because they went very quick in total lockdown, happened yesterday for 5 days. So they expect that this will come under control in the next 5 days, and all borders have been blocked between all states. So completely like different countries, each state has become like that now. That's the update from Australia, which is of course part of the CMAAO and the Asia Pacific program. Yeah.
Okay, so we will come back to you. In fact, I was just seeing this graph and I see this is the wave which is going up in Australia. And is that a third wave is a cause of concern? So this is increasing.
Yes.
So we will come back on more questions. Can I now invite Mr. Alvin from Hong Kong? Alvin, can you please unmute yourself? Somehow you're upside down.
Hello. Thank you. In Hong Kong, we are struggling to have zero infection. And so once in a while, there are breakthrough. So, but on the whole, for the past 2 months, Hong Kong basically have been stopping the entry of the mutant viruses at the border, but there were breakthroughs occasionally. So for the past 2 months, Hong Kong was very vigilant in mitigating the spread of the Delta and Alpha variants spreading in the community. And so on the vaccination level, we had now more than 2.7 million citizens vaccinated with the first dose, and about 40% of our population. And then about almost almost 30% of our population have been vaccinated with 2 doses, about 20-something%. So there is improvement, but still we have to keep on the engine to encourage citizens to have the vaccination. Well, up till now, only the middle-aged people have been more energetic to go for the vaccination. For the elderly, that is over 60 years of age, the vaccination rate is only, say, about 25%, just a quarter of the age group. So that is quite unsatisfactory. So the government had now more incentives to encourage the elderly people to have vaccination, and also the doctors, encourage the doctors to vaccinate the elderly people. Because in the past, many doctors are hesitant to give vaccines to the elderly people, especially because in Hong Kong, there's guideline that if those elderly people have some chronic diseases, so we will not really give the vaccines to those elderly people as well. And in Hong Kong, many people were either rejecting the government's policy because of the past conflicts in the social movements. Many young people were quite antagonistic, and they won't listen to the government's advice. So on the other hand, the young age group also, that is, the young age group also not having a high percentage of vaccination. And although the government had already initiated the vaccination for the teenagers or the 12 to 15 years of age group for the BioNTech vaccination, but the turn-up rate is, of course, unsatisfactory. In June, that is because many young people had to face the examinations. The parents just won't allow the children to have the vaccination before the vaccination, fearing of the side effects. And after the examination is a summer vacation. So again, the parents won't encourage the children to have vaccination in case they have the side effects. And they could not carry out the mass vaccination programs in the schools as in the flu vaccination program every year because it's already summer holidays. So that's difficulty for the government to implement their vaccination engine. And although the commercial enterprises, they had initiated many incentives such as lottery and the prizes to get different even apartments and other prizes to attract the citizens to go for vaccination in order to get the prizes. But I think those who were against the government, they still would not really accept those incentives. Now, so that's why the government are now thinking of ways to push the vaccinations to be linked with employment. Now, that is another very courageous move. Because that will almost step on the line of mandatory vaccination. Now, of course, even in UK, they had now steps to move to mandatory vaccination, say for medical workers, for some frontline people or high-risk groups. But in Hong Kong, the move towards ordering vaccinations as mandatory, say, for example, for medical workers, for teachers, for those working in the hotels, you know, elderly homes, there is a great resistance in the society saying that the vaccination should not be mandatory, should always be voluntary, ethically. So now they are preparing the lobbyists and those KOLs, those key opinion leaders talking in their own territories to help the government to push to such a mandatory vaccination move. So we keep our fingers crossed. As doctors, we always would advocate high coverage of vaccination, but there are still strong voices, loud voices against mandatory vaccination, even in those high-risk professions or high-risk environments or high-risk groups. So in any way, we hope that up to September, before the next school year begins, and so for the economic sectors to be reopened more, the government hoped that the vaccination rate at the end of September could be reaching 70% of the population. So we keep our fingers crossed. It's not easy because of course, the rate of vaccination now is picking up due to the incentives. But however, there's still a substantial proportion of the population that's still against the vaccination, not to mention those anti-vaccination people. There is still a group of naturalists that those are anti-vaccinationists and some religious people who are also anti-vaccine. So we hope that the vaccination rate could improve substantially. But also some academics, some professors in those universities were very suspicious that even you reach a 70%, is not yet the threshold, the new threshold for herd immunity in Hong Kong because of the emergence of the variants of concern coming to Hong Kong. And also because half of our vaccinees, in fact, were receiving the Sinovac vaccine manufactured by China. And scientifically, what they have published is still only a 50% efficacy of the vaccines in the third phase trial. And say in Indonesia, the real life experience is that many vaccinated medical personnel, including doctors with Sinovac vaccine, had been confirmed to have COVID-19 infection, and many of them even had died. So the scientists in Hong Kong are a bit worried that with the vaccination with Sinovac vaccines, would the herd immunity be sufficient only by 80% of the population being vaccinated? So we have to have more scientific data, and the Chinese manufacturers are doing studies to have data to show whether the vaccinees with the CoronaVac, that is the vaccine produced by Sinovac, really need a third dose to boost the protection rate, because the University of Hong Kong had again produced a paper that showed that the neutralizing antibody level of people vaccinated with BioNTech was 10 times that of those vaccinees with CoronaVac or the Sinovac vaccine. So this is a question mark that if those citizens vaccinated with CoronaVac or Sinovac vaccine, they need a third dose, probably, first of all. And secondly, because half of our vaccinees were with such a vaccine, the Sinovac vaccine, the herd immunity might be sufficient only if we reach the 80% mark. So that's our situation in Hong Kong. Well, just another point from mainland China, the news had said that they had already got 1.4 billion vaccines administered to the mainland people. And so I'm not sure the age group of such vaccinees in the mainland. Probably they had not vaccinated so much in the elderlies and also the adolescents. But I don't have the data yet. So that's the situation in Hong Kong and mainland China. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. Can I invite Dr. Chong from Singapore Medical Association? Also, I think there's it's a very unique thing which Singapore has done, which I would like you to cover, is that they have made new rules for people who are vaccinated and people who have not been vaccinated about the COVID, So over to Mr. Chong. Can you unmute yourself?
Hey everyone, sorry I was a bit late this morning. All hell's breaking loose in the practice here. Good to see everyone. Okay, in Singapore, we had 0 cases about a week ago, and then the thing exploded with the night spots. So this is a nightmare for us. These karaoke TV joints, these are actually a little bit dubious kind of night spots where female hostesses entertain men, that sort of thing. So it's a disaster. And we've had 120 cases to date confirmed from this cluster, and it's growing fast. And obviously, a lot of the patrons have not come forward. We hear that about, due to the appeals from a minister, about 1,000 came forward for testing. But I'm sure there are some more lurking out there who have not come forward. So we are taking a 4-ring approach to this because we have a very good Trace Together app, right? We have a lot of data on the mobile phone. using the app. So we've done a 4-ring approach. So the first ring is, of course, the first 120 cases. The patrons and the people who were involved in these night spots, there are about 4 or 5 of them. There are about 2,000 of them in the first ring, and they've all been quarantined. The next ring is another 2,000 people. And these are people who have
Sorry.
Sorry, these are people who have come into contact with confirmed cases, but transiently. So how we tell transiently is, I think it's like you walk past each other, the app picks it up, but it's like maybe for less than 20 minutes, all right? And obviously everybody's masked, so these are all transient contacts. And then on the outer ring will be 10,000 people who've come into close vicinity of these night spots. So for example, the restaurant next door or, you know, nearby. So we're looking at a ring approach, and we've quarantined the first ring of 2,000 people, and we're watching the other 2 rings based on how many cases come into ICU. So we're watching the ICU capacity very carefully, but so far so good. We only have 1 fella in ICU at the moment, one case in ICU. But if it goes up to 50, 100 cases, 150 cases, then we'll start to use the ring approach and quarantine everybody. So technically up to 10,000 people can be quarantined if the need arises. So this is what we're using the technology, the data for. Now, the other interesting thing is that these night spots were a little bit dubious. So a lot of people switch off their phones, switch off their Bluetooth. The Trace Together app works by Bluetooth. So they've switched it off deliberately, obviously. You know, don't want to let anybody know where they've been. So that is the unknown that we are dealing with. So we have no idea. Our leadership here has appealed to these people to come forward, and we hear about 1,000 over people have come forward. So we pray and hope that a lot of people will be sensible about protecting themselves, their families, and their loved ones, and come forward for testing. And the testing is anonymous. There's anonymity guaranteed. I'm not sure about prosecution, but anonymity is guaranteed at the moment. So this is a situation in Singapore. On the vaccine front, we have vaccinated 71% of our population. So there's a gap missing. For those who are 12 to 69, we have vaccinated more than 80%. But for those who are above 70, we have vaccinated 71%, and 29% have not been vaccinated. And these 29% are about 140,000 elderly. Now, they are a problem because our ICU capacity in Singapore is 1,000 plus beds. If there's big figures in the elderly, we can be swamped. So we are now pushing very, very hard to vaccinate these 140,000 elderly, reaching out to them, going to their homes and so on. And they are important because they are a potential sword of Damocles that can bring us down. The other thing is, interestingly, Alvin mentioned about exams. When we extended the vaccines to 12 to 16-year-old kids, the first priority we gave were those taking major exams, for example, O levels and so on. And the uptake was very, very good from parents of children who are taking major exams this year. So that was something very different from Hong Kong and Singapore that we noted. Otherwise, the other thing is that because we have just liberalized the dining rules, we used to only allow 2 persons to dine out. Now we've allowed 5 persons to dine out. We are introducing a set of rules where if everyone's been vaccinated, all 5 can dine out. Whereas if you've not been vaccinated, only 2 persons can dine out. And one of the reasons why we're trying to make a differential between the haves and the have-nots, the have vaccinated and the have not vaccinated, using some social pressure and social policies to persuade people to vaccinate. It's still not mandatory, but there are some pressures being put on, as what Sarab has alluded to. So, for example, how do you know that a person has been vaccinated? It's also on the app. On the app, we have a little thing that tells us that we've been vaccinated. I think you can see, if you can see for yourself, there's a vaccinated, I've been vaccinated, and there are details inside the app. So you can actually show, when you enter the restaurant, you can actually show the person who's kind of checking that, look, I've been vaccinated. So if you're vaccinated, all 5 of you are allowed to sit together to eat. But if not, because eating has been deemed by our leadership here to be dangerous, because everybody takes off their mask and starts talking and so on. So this is a high contact, kind of activity that we're looking at. I think basically that's the situation in Singapore. We are watching with bated breath to see whether this cluster explodes, because, as I said, there are a lot of unknowns. So that's the situation we have in Singapore. But so far, so good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chong. Can I invite Dr. Pillay from World Medical Council?
The situation in India, we are in the second wave, but then plateauing only is happening, and it is a slow sort of decline. That is what we are seeing. Now, per day, we have almost 43,000 cases per day, and that's where we stand. And then one aspect of it is 80% of the cases are from 2 states, Maharashtra and Kerala. And the rest of the state contribute 20%. So to that extent, our concentration and on the control can be focused mainly on 2 states. Of course, other states also require attention. Then a recent study by Indian Council of Medical Research, it has come out with a study which is very, very encouraging. Those who have taken vaccine, the breakthrough infection in them do happen, but then only hardly 1% or less than 1% of the patients only need hospitalization. And the death rate compared to the first wave, where we had almost 2.5%, with the vaccinated group, it hardly comes to 0.8%. So scientifically, we have proved that the vaccination do help in reducing the mortality and hospital admission. And so the emphasis now is more on the COVID appropriate behavior and vaccination. Regarding vaccination, our vaccination has to be 8 million per day, but because of non-availability of vaccine or supply being less, we are not able to reach that target. But at least 2 million people, 3 million people are being vaccinated per day. And if you are vaccinating 8 million per day, then in 6 months we can cover most of the population. That is people between 18 and above 18 years. So that is our target. One other interesting sort of observation of the ICMR study is that the breakthrough infection, that is the infection that comes in people who are already vaccinated, is by the Delta variant. So Delta 1,617.2. So that variant is responsible for almost 83% of the infection that is happening in those after vaccination. The alpha, beta, gamma, the number is definitely coming down. And the risk because of those variants are not only in India, all over the world that is happening. And then this Delta variant, it is not something which spreads from one country to another. More than that, now at least 111 countries in the world have Delta variant. And the transmissibility of Delta variant is very high, but the mortality rate and hospitalization number definitely is less. So that's a good aspect of this Delta variant. So now the dominating variant of COVID-19 is the Delta variant. Then of course Y123 are also Delta variant Y123 also to some extent are there, but the percentage is hardly 1% or 1.3%. And the only problem is the transmissibility of this variant is very high. Mortality and hospitalization need definitely, hospitalization need is definitely less, and mortality is also very low. So the vaccines that we use here are mainly the AstraZeneca, our Covishield, and that definitely gives quite a lot of coverage, and our own vaccine. Then, of course, Pfizer and Sputnik Russian vaccine and Moderna, we are in the process of importing those vaccines to meet the gap in time-bound vaccination of our population. So this is, in short, the scenario in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pillai. Can I invite Dr. Salma Gundi, President from Pakistan Medical Association? Dr. Salma, are you available? Otherwise, can I invite Dr. Ashraf?
Hello.
Yeah, okay. Dr. Salma, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure always being here. In Pakistan, we have a very slow pace. Only about 5% of the population has been vaccinated so far. That is about 2.1 crore vaccines have been administered, and our population is about 22 crores. And most of the vaccine that we have is the Chinese vaccine, Sinopharm, and then we have Sinovac. We also have CanSino, which is the one-dose vaccine. And now in the private sector, they have started Pfizer and AstraZeneca. But the people are shy about AstraZeneca. Probably they know about the reports of coagulation or whatever. Anyway, we are trying, the graph is going up, unfortunately. So the government has announced summer vacations, and that's going to save our kids in schools and universities. And on the TV and everywhere, there's this mass campaign about wearing a mask, getting vaccinated. And I hope, and sanitizing and using soap and keeping themselves clean, I hope it has an effect. And I think it's the variant, which was the Indian variant, that has found its way into our country through Dubai and through people in Afghanistan. Anyway, that is it so far. I hope to God we get good results in the future and our pace of vaccination increases, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite Dr. Jamal from Bangladesh? Dr. Jamal, are you available?
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, I just express I'm in a conference workshop, but I can just speak here because it's necessary to inform you the situation prevailing in Bangladesh. Actually, in Bangladesh now, almost this is the last week we have an average of 12,000, more than 12,000 infection. And the death is almost more than 200 in the last week per day, which is actually alarming because actually it is spreading like anything. It is the Delta variant is prevailing here. So it's mostly outside our capital city, Dhaka. So it's in the periphery, and I informed you before that it's in the district, bordering districts with India. So we are actually struggling now, and it was a lockdown, but it has been loosened just 2 days back, and because of this festival, the Idul Adha, which you say, it is just knocking at the door, and so for 1 week it has been loosened. And after that, after 22nd, it will be again under lockdown. So, and vaccination is also continuing. We have now almost quite a good supply this month. And above 18, the people will be allowed to go for vaccination because we are planning to just vaccinate our senior students, I must say. And senior students means that's those who are going to the college and university like that. So that is why we are allowing them to go for vaccination so that we can start our education and schooling and other things. So this is the scenario actually going on in Bangladesh. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chaudhary. Can I invite Japan Medical Association, Dr. Marie?
Thank you very much. This is Mary from JMA, and about 70% of 65 and older will be vaccinated, completely vaccinated will be in a couple days. That's a good news. And nowadays in Japan, about 3,000 people has been tested positive, but only about 50 people are intubated and in ICU. Half of them are Delta variant right now. So we report, I heard that very first case of child has been intubated. So mainly now 30 years old and 40 is main for the severe cases. So yeah, that's something going on in Japan right now. Thank you. Oh, sorry. And we will open the Olympics next week. And we don't have any audience at the site of the Olympics, but the IOC president asked us to invite the guest in the inside of the sports arena also. So we are kind of quite shocked that here that's the opinion from the IOC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Marie. Do we have like Dr. Akhtar Hussain from South Africa Medical Association?
Yeah, good morning, Saurabh. Good morning, listener friends. South Africa is in a big trouble. We have up to 26,000 per day positive. Now we got a double epidemic. One is the COVID-19, the other one is the violence. The violence, especially in two provinces, and looting violence and massive crowded, no SOP. And now we are waiting for super spreader report. So the hospitals are full with the COVID patient and those gunshot and trauma on those looting people who are now full of emergency casualty. Theaters are full. So we having a big problem in South Africa, especially KwaZulu-Natal, one of the biggest province, and Johannesburg area. We have vaccinated almost 3 million, and we aimed for 150,000 per day. But now, because of this new situation, two province vaccination is stopped because the vaccination, transportation, and other issues halted all this, and the people cannot come to the workplace. Delta variant is the dominant in South Africa, and we vaccinating healthcare worker with the Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer for rest of the population. Recently, we started above 35 years old, and Sinovac is just approved this week. And breakthrough infection, especially in the healthcare worker, nurses and doctors, those who got Johnson & Johnson, is mainly the breakthrough started after vaccination of 2 or 3 months. So that is the situation in South Africa.
I was actually seeing the graph of South Africa, which is absolutely different from all others. So this is the highest ever third graph which I've seen right now. And the cases are almost to the tune of 22,000, 24,000, which was higher than the December wave or the June wave. So yes, it is pretty different situation. And we will talk about it after, everybody speaks out. Can I invite Dr. Monica Vasudev from United States, different region, different country altogether. A lot of update coming in from there.
Hi. So this is not a role that I've played before, but the update here is that we are seeing rising cases across the country. And the rise in cases are differentially preferring those states where the vaccination rates are low. We vaccinated very well earlier in the spring, and now we're facing the opposition resistance. I want to wait and see. It doesn't help that there were pauses in immunization in Johnson & Johnson. There were concerns related to the side effects that were reported on the vaccinations. Our Surgeon General just reported that he himself has lost 10 members of his own family because of COVID, and is pleading with members of the country to, citizens of the country to get vaccinated. There have been incentivizing programs in varying degrees to encourage people to get vaccinated. There have been healthcare systems that have been requiring it to become mandatory. There have been decisions made at the Supreme Court level that it can be allowed, it should be mandated. But I think what we are seeing now is that Delta is in all these countries. We have to use a Swiss cheese model approach in terms of approaching the pandemic now. Vaccination is very important, but it's also common sense. We need to avoid the super spreader events like we're seeing in South Africa. So vaccination is only part of the story. We still need to hand wash, we still need to socially distance, and we still need to choose activities that are pragmatic and not to assume that once you're vaccinated. The other question that I get asked a lot about is checking antibody levels and assessing, am I protected? I'm just gonna say this again, that checking antibody levels, understanding immunization efficacy is based on what the models are showing in terms of how many people are vaccinated in an area, depending on what the Delta variant is. Even if you have antibodies, it's fine, but it doesn't mean that you can unmask and do whatever you want. I think we need to encourage people to vaccinate. We need people to choose judiciously their activities so that they can still remain employed, they can still be going to school, but they should not be thinking that they need to make up for the last 1.5 to 2 years of their lives as this pandemic has raged. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe we have covered all the countries. So we have more guests whom I would like to invite. Any country specific who have not spoken right now and I missed out? I don't see anyone from Nepal over here or from Indonesia or somebody. Okay, so can I invite Dr. Shashank Joshi from India? And then we can invite people from Pakistan. Dr. Shashank Joshi, are you there? So he has been very instrumental in Maharashtra. Yeah.
So I agree with Dr. Pillai and everybody which is saying that the current global concern is that we are headed for another wave. And though we are partly vaccinated, we don't know how efficiently the vaccines work. But two things are clear cut, that the predominant global strain now would be the Delta or maybe Delta plus, but Delta plus I think is more of a Delta minus than Delta plus. So the current concerns in India, particularly as Dr. Pillai said, are Kerala and Maharashtra. And the current focus is on testing, tracking, treatment. And still we need to avoid congregations, whether they are political, religious, or otherwise, because otherwise we know that these become spreader events. And there's a lot of, because of the what we saw in Europe, in the Wembley Stadium or Wimbledon last week, there's a lot of restlessness in the Indian population to sort of break protocols. And that could be disastrous because, you know, India has not been able to go beyond 39 crore vaccines. And that's why a large population still is unexposed. So currently, the strain will move in the unvaccinated population and the breakthrough of the vaccinated population. And it's going to be very tricky. But one thing is clear that the breakthrough infections are very small. And in those breakthrough infections, whatever disease we are seeing is predominantly asymptomatic, mild or moderate. But we do see occasional cases of immune escape where we have had moderate and severe disease also. The other thing is now in India, we are getting more experience with early attack of monoclonal antibodies, which have been predominantly sent from United States to us as a part of a aid as well as part of a commercial this thing, which are the Regeneron antibodies. And our early experiences in big cities like Mumbai has been pretty good. We are able to save hospitalizations if we use them, particularly in the first 3 days. And I think that's something which is being recognized well. The only challenge with the monoclonal antibodies are that we can't use them in people who are double vaccinated very efficiently. And probably the claim is that the Delta Plus may not work very well with them. But currently our experience in more than 150 patients with monoclonal antibodies has been excellent. None of our patients needed hospitalization. Most of the time we admit them for a day for insurance purposes, and all of them have recovered. So that is the only thing, that early treatment option, which may reasonably there in the high-risk population, is available now. And of course, our struggle beyond Covishield, as Dr. Pillai said, and Covaxin has been the Moderna, Pfizer, and more vaccines to come into India. So I think the current thing is that we need to change our mind and behavior. I agree with Dr. Monica also that a lot of people want to know whether they're immune. And the biggest violators we are seeing is people who have got a single vaccine or a double vaccine. And they suddenly break protocols and stop masking. And that is a big challenge which we see. Now, unlike the US, which has a lot of free air and not very crowded, clustered, poorly ventilated environments, most environments in the US are well ventilated, open air. India has a lot of crowded spaces and poorly ventilated spaces. So the transmission risk is much more. So I think we are at a turning point in India where we are trying to unlock. We want to curb the next wave, and we want to have safe environments, both at workspaces, school spaces, and restart the economy. So, I'm very disturbed with what's happening in South Africa. But if we don't handle the situation well in India, we might have similar situations. But we feel that, the third wave, if it comes, will be mitigated, mutated, and much milder than the second wave, which was very, very, explosive and violent, unless and until an unusual strain breaks. And therefore, we are trying to do more and more genomic sequencing studies. And current data shows that beyond Delta, we have not discovered anything new. So that is the good news. And I think we still need to have the mental health strategies, how to get people to implement better behavior. That remains the big challenge. And a larger supply of vaccination, the government of India has promised us that in the next 2 to 3 months, we will be able to have almost 20 to 30 crore vaccines per month, which will probably vaccinate 90 crore population. India has a population of around 130 crore. So I think we should be good in the next 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you. And in fact, yesterday I was traveling, and I just want to add what Dr. Shank Joshi was saying. There was a political rally, and there was a loud music which was going on. There would be 100 people there. And when there is a loud music, when you want to say something, forget about the 6 feet distance. They were actually, speaking in the ear, and which is actually a cause of concern. And you never know what the third wave will bring. Now, can I have Dr. Ashraf Nizami from Pakistan Medical Association, also the first vice president for SIMAAO?
Thank you very much, Saurabh. Certainly, President of Pakistan Medical Association, Dr. Salma Kundi, already has talked about the status in Pakistan. First of all, as I would like to greet my friend Russell from Australia, to see him in good health and active again. I appreciate all the participation. If in Pakistan to be said that when we have started from the last year, it is about 983,000 about people who have been infected by the COVID-19. And deaths, what we had up till date, that is 22,720. This is the official data which I'm sharing. Active cases, we have 43,670. Last 22 hours, the tests what we have performed in Pakistan, these are about 37,700. And new cases in Pakistan, 2,327. For us, it is very much alarming over here, the situation, because the positivity rate that is increasing day by day, every day, it is about 1% addition Now in Pakistan, the positivity rate is 6.17, whereas day two before it was 4%, 5%, and today it is 6.17%. And in Pakistan, we have 24 hours death, that is the 31. As Dr. Salma has talked about, that we have the Sinovac and CanSino vaccine, that is the Chinese vaccine, what we are giving over here. But due to the international pressures, that the traveling was a problem. And those fellows who want to travel abroad, the government is providing AstraZeneca, and up to some cases there is the Pfizer, but we are having the shortage. What my colleagues from India has said and Bangladesh, we certainly have a problem and issue about the people response, about the citizen response. I mean the actions on the SOPs, we are very poor, government is trying its level best. And hence, you know, in Pakistan, again, the majority of the Muslims, again, we have the celebration of Eid, as Dr. Chaudhary has said, in Bangladesh. Again, in Pakistan, that is the overcrowded. We have started some places as a smart lockdown, what we call in Pakistan, and particularly the Sindh, they have now closed the schools. Schools have been closed. Now we have talking about the mandatory vaccination, particularly about those, the doctors, medical professionals, and public dealing. They have to have the essential this vaccination, and they have to have the issuance of the cards by the government of Pakistan. Interestingly, but in Pakistan, we have about 50% of this vaccine, this virus. It is the Delta, and it is certainly alarming. Hence, everybody of us now, we know about it, that the spread of Delta virus is very lethal, but we understand over here and what has been proven. So this is all about Pakistan. And I show my solidarity with my friends from South Africa. Very unfortunately, what is happening over there. And I think the state has to come forward, and the writ of the state, that is very much important. But at least in Pakistan, I speak about that the governments, they have to act, and actively action has to be taken by the states. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also have some more speakers. Can I have Dr. Sajjad, General Secretary from Pakistan Medical Association? Okay. Can I have Dr. Bukhari, Mr. Bukhari?
Thank you very much, Dr. Agarwal, and everyone. Everything has been told by Dr. Salma and Dr. Nizami. But one important thing and very alarming thing I want to share with the colleagues, that tomorrow data was declared by the state government. This is the National Institute of Virology. Randomly, 2,052 people were tested who were showing some certain types of...
Dr. Bukhari, your voice is not very clear. There's a lot of disturbance. Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Agarwal. One data I want to share to everyone, that yesterday the Sindh government has declared a data that 2,052 people were randomly selected, and their phenotype was tested in the National Institute of Virology, correct? And the interesting data was that the positivity rate was 163 among 262 people who were showing the certain types of the sign and the symptoms. Among these 94 people, randomly samples were selected to test the genotyping. And very interestingly, the 65 people among them were showing the Delta virus, and the positivity rate is 69%. Another interesting data that among the 25%, there are so many variants which have not been mentioned in words. That is very serious situation in Pakistan, that in randomly selected certain variants, among them, few of them was Lambda and few of them are the Delta plus. Another important thing is that the government is tomorrow or after 2 days declaring the big data of breakthroughs in infection in Pakistan. And anyhow, we cannot control our religious congregations and other things, but we are requesting the people that when you go to the mosque or when you go to your religious celebration, you must wear the mask. So that is the only thing that we can, and they are giving us an example that if there are elections, if there are football matches, if there are other, then why do so this is very important thing that we cannot control such type of religious congregations. And other interesting thing is that we are quoting the example that UK is opening everything on the 19th July. Let's see what is happening. So the summary of my discussion is that we should be very careful and we should mix and match. Pakistan has allowed mix and match and only one dose after getting another dose of any other vaccine. Thank you very much.
Sure, Dr. Bukhari, your voice was not very clear. So yeah, but we did. So we still have 10 minutes, Dr. Chong. We can have some discussions. It was a nice update which was missing over a period of time, and I realized today that this is something which we were missing over a period of time. This was a very important update, and I was very surprised to see the condition of South Africa, which was really alarming. And my best wishes for the country, and I hope all the other countries are safe. We will open the discussion for forum. I also want to invite people, if anybody has a reinfection cases, are they seeing any reinfection after vaccination? I heard one of the statements which was passed through Hong Kong, which says the biotech vaccines have presented 10 times more antibodies than Sinovac. So all those things which are very, very interesting for a discussion for people like us and the medical side of it. Over to you.
Dr.
Yeah.
Saurabh, Dr. Chong, can I just have a question to my leader counterpart, please? Thank you. Actually, I told you I'm just in a conference, but I've come here actually. So my question is, in India, ivermectin was used. Of course, I must say relatively hugely because it was actually prescribed in the protocol given by the Union Ministry of India, Union Health Ministry. Later, after 1 week, just another protocol, actually, they just brought it out from the Director General of Health Services of Central. So can you just tell me that, because, in Bangladesh, it is just going crazy, actually. And recently, one article came out, actually, it is a preprint, of course, must say, it is from the Egypt. Actually, they were showing this, that it was very effective and the sample size was high. But later on, it was revealed that it is actually full of plagiarism and the data were incorrect. So when they are informed about this, they have just withdrawn the article. So I want to know the situation actually. Can you just tell us, my friends, that what about the ivermectin actually prescribing in India, so that in Bangladesh actually we can just save ourselves, because WHO, in March 21, they have warned no ivermectin for treatment purpose. Thank you.
I think Dr. Shashank answered it very well last week. Can we get him to answer it?
Yes, sir. So
Yes.
This is Shashank here. See, this ivermectin is like a double-edged sword. Originally, we found that it could have been reasonably effective for prevention or treatment in mild disease. But the data generated on randomized control trials has not been supportive. And therefore, the government of India and various other governments did not support routine use of ivermectin outside of research setup. And now with the advent of molnupiravir undergoing randomized control trials, favipiravir, which is available, and all these drugs only work if you use them in the first 48 hours to 72 hours. So for treatment, if you want to use ivermectin, it is completely experimental therapy. You can use 12 milligram twice a day for 5 days. If you give it in the first 48 to 72 hours, it may be effective in a research setting with or without doxycycline 100 milligram twice a day for 5 days. But the data did not support it. So initially the AIMS, ICMR, national protocol, as well as the Government of India protocol had it. In lack of data, took it out because they realized that it may not be saving lives. And whether you give ivermectin or whether you give placebo, it would be the same. Which is why currently it is allowed to be used only in a compassionate ground or research ground. But otherwise, for routine ground, it was withdrawn. Similarly, for prophylaxis, we used initially hydroxychloroquine, which did not work. And we also, for mild treatment, we use hydroxychloroquine, which has mixed data. So ivermectin prophylaxis also 12 milligram once a week was used in some populations. That is also in a research mode. So currently, if you ask me, ivermectin is in a research mode. It cannot be used as a governmental recommendation at all. Various governments across India have not recommended the routine use of ivermectin. It may be useful in exceptional circumstances where nothing else is available. What probably will come in mild disease beyond monoclonal antibodies is probably the
Dr. Pillai here. Just two comments. Can I? One is that the antibody titer estimation, it has a lot of fallacies because what we had estimated in 3 phases. And in the first phase, the antibodies in young patients who had COVID had low antibody values. So you cannot directly link your immunity with the antibody titer that you measure. But then for an epidemiological survey, it may be useful. But then when there is a challenge of a second infection, even with the low antibody, once there is a challenge of infection, naturally the T cells and CD4 and 8 all get activated, and the antibodies can at that point of time go off. And that is what experts view. Regarding reinfection, we had one case. Our first case in India has been a medical student who has been in Wuhan and returned back home. That was way back in December 2019. And that girl has reinfection now, but then she has not taken vaccination. It has been approved reinfection in her after almost 1.5 years or more. So that brings to the point whether you had to have booster dose once in a year or so, but we cannot definitely sort of ponder about it because already the first and second dose we have not been able to administer in the eligible group of people. So only after that we can think of a booster dose, which invariably will be required. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Shashank, you were talking, I think you cut off in, you were...
Yeah.
Would you like, I think your internet
I would
got
agree
off
with
that
Dr.
time.
Pillai on both the points, both for reinfection and for antibody estimation. And that is what exactly Dr. Monica Vasudev also said. And I think as far as ivermectin is concerned, right now, we don't urge it as a routine standard of care. So please be very cautious and careful. You can try a research mode trial early in the disease if you don't have any other drugs available. And now, in the affording class of population, we have the Regeneron antibodies available. So they have virtually become a standard of care in a small cohort because it is not accessible and affordable to a large population. And therefore, we want to regulate those prices. And we want to see whether we can have an affordable antibody cocktail, which may be available in early disease. Molnupiravir is a drug which is undergoing investigation, phase 2, phase 3 trials in the US and India both. And we believe 800 milligram twice a day for 5 days, that RCT is probably will be submitted for US submission as well as Indian FDA submission somewhere in the month of July, August, end July or mid-August. That may be, useful in early disease. Now, the innovator of ivermectin as well as innovator for molnupiravir is Merck. So Merck came out with a statement not to use ivermectin in routine care. And that is what WHO also endorsed. So right now, in absence of generation of good quality data in a research setting, we do not recommend use of ivermectin.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Shashank.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph.
Interestingly, just now you were talking, I think somebody was talking about Sinovac versus Pfizer, BioNTech. So in Singapore, we've been using Pfizer and Moderna initially, and we had about the 200,000 doses of Sinovac. So that was released because WHO approved it. But the Singapore government has kind of hasn't quite, our regulators haven't quite approved the use of Sinovac in Singapore yet. We released it because of the WHO approvals. But having said that, I've seen some trials coming out of the big trial coming out of Chile, which was published in New England Journal of Medicine, and the Sinopharm data looks quite impressive actually. Is this borne out in the countries that are using these two vaccines?
And one more thing I can add actually, Dr. Chong, just yesterday probably it came to my notice actually, that's the AstraZeneca vaccine has got actually more actually, this is a lifetime something time because it activates the T cell, memory T cell. So the data is showing that it will work for more and more time actually than other vaccines. Is it how you think about it?
Yeah, it's probably more reactogenic. Monica, you have anything to say about these? Let's say what I've just asked about the Sinovac and the Sinopharm.
So I don't have that much data about the Sinovac and the Sinopharm, but I do know that they showed that the germinal centers were activated a lot longer and supported longer memory B cell long-term immunity with the presence of germinal cells with both Pfizer and Moderna. And that was data that came out a couple of weeks ago. And let me see if I can pull that up for you.
The reason why I asked is because actually our leadership here in Singapore, our government here in Singapore is kind of like has a bias against Sinovac, and so there's a lot of feelings on the ground about the fact that there seems to be some bias, because remember we're using some social policies to steer people, between those who are vaccinated and those who are not. And there's also seemed to be a gulf between Pfizer, Moderna, and Sinovac, if you know what I mean, among the vaccinated. So it seems like the policies are trying to separate those who have the vaccines and those who have not, and in the vaccine group between those who have Pfizer, Moderna, and those who have Sinovac.
That is also this separated there, divided in the vaccinated group. There is some sort of this discrimination also is there?
Yes, there is actually, for example, they say things like, if you are attending a mass function, like a wedding, and if you have done Pfizer, Moderna, I got to clarify this, I'm not mistaken, you don't have to do the ART. ART is the rapid antigen test. But if you had a Sinovac, you need to do the ART.
Wow.
There's some small little differentials. Yeah.
Thank you.
Not in your face, but some small differentials. So, looking at the data that has just come out on Chile, from Chile, and there was also a data from Sinopharm. They were quite impressive, actually.
But
Dr. Chong, can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, very interestingly, what I would like to share that in China, what I have a belief that there is the politics or the corporate culture in vaccination and health issues too. The reason being the Wuhan, which all started from there 2019. And now there is the zero, the vaccination in Chinese program, that all was the Chinese. Neither the AstraZeneca nor the Pfizer was being used in China. And now the Chinese have controlled all that. So I think there needs to be some good wrestle. And moreover, the countries like Pakistan or Bangladesh and so on, whatsoever we have that has to be used and that has to be promoted as a vaccination program. This is my humble submission. Thank you.
Dr. Nizami, just can I have just observation? My observation. Actually, you know, in China,
Yeah,
actually,
sure.
they have already achieved what you can say herd immunity by this vaccination, because you know already they have vaccinated more than 110 crore or 20 like that I have seen. So most of the people they are vaccinated. So there is herd immunity already developed there. So it is good for them. So if it is effective 79% or 72%, it doesn't matter for them.
That's right.
Do you agree?
This is what I say, Jamal. That's what I mean.
Yes.
That once
Yes.
it is effective, then you achieve the herd immunity. If it is not that much effective, how you can achieve the herd immunity? This is what my point of view. I mean, the scientists are over there, and Dr. Chong, the most expert, and Dr. Monica, I believe they can share what it is all about.
But you know, I remember Dr. Agarwal, KK Agarwal, mentioned this word vaccine wars. So literally there is, I mean, to me, if everybody is vaccinated regardless of the vaccine, I'm happy. You know, why make the differential between, you know what I mean, right? I mean, if everybody's vaccinated, if 90%, 100% is vaccinated, who cares, right? So I find this thing between different types of vaccine a little bit troubling, I find. Because we are ultimately going for herd.
Dr. Chong, can I just tell you, this is the 79% effective against the contracting the disease, okay? But if the antibody level goes a bit, that's a higher or a certain level, that it will be protected, that one in a 79% cases. So I think if by vaccination, whether it is Pfizer, Moderna, or the Sinovac, Sinopharm, so once you get the herd immunity by vaccination, then it will work, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
excuse me.
Yes.
Can I ask
yes, Dr. Sama? Yes.
I missed the talk about ivermectin. What was the crux? Ivermectin is not recommended.
Yes. I believe Dr. Shashank has mentioned, Dr. Shashank, just want to recap what you just said?
Because anybody who comes positive, I do recommend.
If Dr. Shashank is not here already, so I can just tell what he said, because it was my question actually. He just told that there actually in clinical trial setting, you can use ivermectin in clinical trial setting, not in a treatment. So what WHO recommended in March 21, on March 21, that is he just mentioned. I asked actually what about the India, actually they first included in the protocol given by the Union Ministry and Health Ministry. Later it was just taken away from the protocols given by the Director General of Health Services of India. That was his answer actually. Later it was not proved actually that it works that way. Thank you.
That is correct. Sorry, I had some audio issue.
Thank you.
Dr. Monica, you have something to say?
Yes, the Germinal Center.
There was a question about recognition of vaccines and how do we approach that, given that the amount of focus on research outcome data has been differential. Just from my review, and that's my personal review, I see a lot of data on Pfizer. I was actually trying to share my screen about the, okay, if you can give me the screen, that would be great.
The moment you put in the data on the chat, I enabled it, I realized.
Okay, no worries. So I was showing you the efficacy of the long-term efficacy. So that this is the slide right here. And what you're seeing here is a paper where they're showing that the mRNA vaccines are inducing persistent human germinal center responses. And germinal centers are where you have the residence of the memory B cells, the very specific production of antibodies. And what they saw is that they studied the cells from the germinal centers from the axillary lymph nodes of 14 recipients of the Pfizer vaccine, an mRNA vaccine, and it demonstrated that they induced a persistent germinal center B cell response that enabled the generation of robust humoral immunity, and it was very long lasting. and that they found the same findings with Moderna. Now, a lot of the data that we're getting are from the mRNA vaccines. There's been concerns related to the side effects with the vector-based vaccine, whether it be the Johnson & Johnson as well as the AstraZeneca. So then what I posted in the link was a statement about, it was a statement from the WHO, and that's from the COVAX, and it says that we need to give equal recognition to the vaccines. I think it is unfair. We choose to get the vaccines based on location and availability, proximity to where we live, the ability to integrate this into our daily lifestyle. If they have vaccine A available, then how should you be given certain privileges or not be given certain privileges because you did not get vaccine B or C? So this is basically the WHO stating that that they said that it urges all regional, national, and local government authorities to recognize all fully vaccinated people who have received COVID-19 vaccines that are deemed safe and effective by the WHO to be able to travel or attend events. And I think this should be taken broadly, that we should consider anybody who's vaccinated with the appropriate recommended dosing to be considered equal, irrespective of the vaccine that they received. And so I think this was in terms of vaccine equity in terms of making it considered to be equal. As we get forward and we move into the world of booster immunization, mixing and matching, we're going to be in uncharted territory. There's going to be so many variables, not only that we're in an ideal world and that we can choose what vaccine we want and when we want it, but it's also going to be access to these vaccines. So I think that having, again, I've mentioned this before, a variety of vaccines is very good. Having one vaccine right now, if we don't have a vaccine that is 100% effective, I think might be beneficial because we'll be addressing the spread from different mechanisms in different people. Thanks.
Thank you, Monica. And that was that answered my question. So there actually are some ethical issues when you start to discriminate between different vaccines that you've been vaccinated with. I mean, the population have been vaccinated with. Is that right? Is that the summary?
Yes, that is.
Okay. If you can find that stuff for me, can you send it to me from the WHO? I'd like to have a look at it. Yeah.
As I come across it, I will. This was actually something that came out just within the last two to 3 weeks. So that caught my eye, but if I see anything else, I'll let you know.
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of our session because, you know, the next participants will be coming in soon. And we've already overstayed our welcome a couple of weeks already.
I really thought today the meeting will last only for an hour.
Dr. Saurabh, Mr. Saurabh, actually just for Dr. Chong, actually, Dr. Chong,
yes.
This is July actually. Last year we could not do a conference actually. So this time actually the WHO is going on, and sorry, WMA. That's last year virtual conference was there, and so this time it was supposed to be in England. So I don't know whether they will go for in person, but we can go for virtual conference if you think. You can just make contact with the Japanese, our secretary at Japan Medical Association. Would you please go on for this?
Yes,
for
I will
CMAAO
ask.
conference. Yeah,
I will ask. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and we've come to the end of our session. It's always good to see everyone. Yes, yes, Dr.
Dr. Chong, just on the thank you very much. Just on the comment of Dr. Chaudhary, I think the CMAAO office barriers, they have to come up, and the Secretary General of CMAAO, he has to conduct a meeting, at least, on all that microphones or so, what we are having on webinar. And then there should be some decision about the CMAAO activities, virtual or non-virtual, this conference. Thank you.
Yes, yes. I'll take note of that. And thank you very much, everyone. Take a note of what Dr. Chaudhary and Prof. Ashraf has said. Thank you very much for your attendance again. And I'll see you all next week for the same session. Such a pleasure seeing everyone. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone,
Thank you
for
so much.
joining in.
Thank you, Saurabh. You are continuing it. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
Thank you so much. See you next week.